Welcome back to part 2 of our discussion with Keith Matejka, game designer of Role Player Adventures, and Bullfrogs, among others. If you haven't already listened to part 1, we recommend that you do so first. Thank you so much for listening.
So your wife works for Thunderworks.
Yeah.
My wife and I worked together for 24 years, so I'm quite familiar with that dynamic. I'm wondering, how do the two of you work together? How does that go? And, what kinds of challenges and benefits do you see from that?
It's anecdotally. So I was telling the story. I was at Gen Con this year, and I was talking to Isaac from Cellofair Games. He just came over and said, "What's up?" And we were just chatting a little bit. And I mentioned that my wife Claire works for me, and he's like, "Me and my wife could never work together." And I was like, "Oh, I guess that's true." I mean, my wife and I are we've been married a long time. It's kind of like we finish each other's sentences. We get along very well in every aspect of life. So it's fine. I mean, she knows. I mean, she makes jokes, like whatever, boss, that kind of stuff. But
Right.
she's also, invested in the success of the company. She wants to see me do well. She wants to see Thunderworks do well because not only it's also putting food on our table,
Right.
and it's challenging work for her, and she says I'm a good boss. I don't know if she's lying or not, but she says that. But yeah, it's fine. She really likes. It's about figuring out what that person likes, and she likes doing like planning for conventions and getting all the ducks in the row, make sure we have power, and she gets the check sheets together of make sure we have all these things that we're supposed to bring. She looks at historical data as to how many copies we've sold at that convention in the past to figure out how many we're going to bring in the future, and she's booking the truck to for U-Haul to get us there and all that stuff. So she likes doing that piece. So we're like, okay, that's yours then.
Right.
Especially when Kirk came on this year, he created this Trello board that has all the things that Thunderworks does, and then we just went through and started I want to do that one, I want to do that one, and kind of picking. Everybody was kind of divvying up what they wanted, and then we fought over the last couple ones that nobody wanted. But so, and it kind of highlights people do their best work when they're doing something they like. And we want people doing their best work. So she does that kind of stuff. She also I've never had the time, maybe interest in really building relationships with retailers. Because I'm so kind of so many steps away. So as a publisher, I sell to a consolidator, I store with a consolidator and I hire them to sell to distribution, who then sell to retailers, who then sell to consumers. So, when someone says, "Hey, when's your game going to be on the shelf?" That's 4 steps away from me. I was like, I have no idea.
No idea. Yeah.
I don't know how much store X is buying from ACD distribution, who's buying from. I mean, I know how much ACD has, but I don't know how much ACD is selling to Game Store X, Y, or Z, because that's just not my level of visibility. So she's bridging the gap there. So we've never really supported selling directly to retailers much in the past, and that's a program that she's really heading up, making cold calls, sending out lots of newsletters, having phone conversations, and taking orders directly from them and stuff. So that's what she's been doing, and she just covers, fills in the holes when I'm falling apart. So, she runs to the post office sometimes, whatever. So that's been good. Our relationship is great. I don't know.
Master of spreadsheets / account manager, SMB vertical, small business.
Yeah.
/ both.
/ everything.
My wife and I, it's just the two of us, and we have Employee of the Month awards.
Yeah.
So, she'll get off no, she'll get off the call with a customer, and it's usually her that wins because she talks to the customers. And she'll be like, "Oh, I just got this great deal. I just closed this, or I just did that." And I'll be like, "Oh, well, it's the 3rd of the month. I guess you won the Employee of the Month again." So yeah, definitely. So as a publisher, is there a type of game that you're looking for?
No.
No.
People ask me like, what does Thunderworks want to see? And what kind of games does Thunderworks want to do? And this is probably the worst way to do things, but for me, I look for games that appeal to my personal tastes. It's all about what Keith wants at the end of the
day. Hey, that's the reason you have a business. That's the way it should be.
Right.
Like, I don't want to do a game publish a game because I think it's going to sell well. I want to publish a game because I'm really excited about the game, and that's why I end up signing all these other designers' games, is because I play them or whatever, and I really, really like them, and I don't want anybody else to publish them but me. It's like I have a vision of what I think it's going to be, and I think somebody else is going to mess it up. So I'm taking that game, so that becomes the driving force. I love 90-minute Euros. We publish a lot of 90-minute Euros, like in terms of Tenpenny and Cape May and Role Player and Lockup. Those are all kind of in that realm. Sometimes Cartographers was a little bit of fluke, and basically a trusted friend said, "Hey, this game's really good. You should publish it." And I was like, meh. Rolling right, that's going to be gone in 2 months. We'll miss the wave, and who cares? But then he asked me if I would translate the rulebook, because the designer is Brazilian, so it was in Portuguese. And I edited the rulebook for him, and then as a favor. And then I was like, well, now that I know how to play the game, I might as well just try it. And then, so then we tried it, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. And then I decided to sign it at that point. So there's like these, you never know where a good idea is going to come from, and so Thunderworks is fortunate to kind of have two kind of evergreen titles, Role Player and Cartographers, and there's a lot of companies that don't have that strike of luck and struggle more. So I'm always looking for the next one, but I just look for games that I think are cool. And that's not
all right. So
like, how does somebody else apply that to what they're doing? I'm not sure.
No, that's fine. So the answer is games that Keith likes. What do you like? What do you have a favorite mechanism? You got a game that you're excited about right now?
It's probably a shorter list of things I don't like. I tend to not like space themed games, but I bend that rule sometimes.
Sure.
And then I don't really like party games. I don't really like dexterity games. I don't like speed games. So I like, I love Reiner Knizia. I love things that I like innovation, so something I've never seen before. I like, there's like the rules, like everybody has to be engaged to the end, so there's no player elimination. There has to be some level of luck so that it can even the playing field for inexperienced players. And I like fantasy, but I like other stuff too. And I have gotten a lot of questions or maybe criticism of like, why aren't you doing just like Role Player World stuff? Like, that should be your thing and just build on that. And then Thunderworks is Role Player. And it's like, well, I like other stuff besides fantasy is basically the answer.
Yeah.
And as much as I like doing that stuff, I still want to do that, but I want to have my options open. I look at like the guys who do like Red Dragon Inn, where that's their thing. That's like the game they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they have a clear identity, which is probably better from a marketing perspective. But like, well, I don't know, if I had to do fantasy games for my entire life, I'd probably go crazy. Yeah. Or maybe I'd have to do like a second brand that has like all my non-role player stuff. But
yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, that's what authors do, right? Because they write under a different name because they've built this brand. I'm not sure that that's the most efficient way to publish books, but from an author's point of view, I guess. But maybe from the publisher
mentioned Drizzt Do'Urden, right? So R.A. Salvatore. Has R.A. Salvatore ever published a non-fantasy novel?
I don't know.
But I'm curious to see what that novel would be if there is.
Right.
All right. So if we know of another R.A. Salvatore novel, people need to write in and tell us. That's escapeintoboardgames@gmail.com. Let's do that. Actually, so we talked about it a little bit earlier. Obviously, you must be into or have been into role-playing games. Role-playing games.
I played a lot of role-playing games in college.
Yeah. Okay.
So I played, it's funny, like D&D, I always thought was kind of okay. I mean, it kind of got me into role-playing, but I liked Shadowrun and Vampire the Masquerade were like my two main games. And then we played some GURPS sometimes and other stuff. But I also played a lot of video game RPGs.
Right.
So like when I was young, the Ultima series was a big deal.
Okay, right.
So, Ultima 4 and 5 were the ones like the amount of hours I poured into these games was crazy, and all that stuff was very influenced by Dungeons and Dragons, and of course Dungeons and Dragons was very influenced by Tolkien. So it's all just there's that magical idea of like putting a party together, creating your character and going on adventures. That is just there's something really magical about that, but. Yeah, so role player was definitely influenced by all those things. So probably more by those Ultima games I played, but that's clearly influenced by D&D. So kind of by proxy, it's influenced by those. And when it comes to role playing, I always enjoyed the storytelling piece of it. Like, oftentimes we strip away a lot of the mechanics because they sometimes get in the way of the fun for me, right? So. Because I like the storytelling, the character development, the crazy things that you decide to do and throw the GM for a loop to see how they react to it.
Right.
So when you watch people play board games, whether they be the games that Thunderworks puts out or other games, if you're just like watching people at a conference or something like that, my assumption is that you enjoy that, but what do you enjoy about watching people play games? If you do.
Yeah, I mean, I do. So a lot of times, playtesting oftentimes works like that, where I will, I watch people playtest the games that I'm working on. And oftentimes I just don't say anything because I'm curious. I don't want to influence people's decisions in any way, but that's the fun of like, to me, the boiled down to its core, board games are all, games in general are all about creating interesting decisions for people. And like seeing how people react to those things is interesting. It's like a little science experiment. It's like you set up this this little maze for them, and you're seeing like how long it takes them to get through it or make this choice versus that choice. And I think about that analogy a lot when I think about design in terms of oftentimes you're creating a goal for somebody in a game, and then basically how high do you make the walls of the maze? Like you want to, a lot of times, games give you kind of shortcuts to accomplish an action, or they'll give you a special power that lets you do something better than somebody else. And like, it's always something that I think about of like, and I use this visual of like raising the walls of the labyrinth of like how easy, you create a puzzle for somebody, but you have to be careful that you don't create a too big of a shortcut for them so that they can bypass the entirety of your puzzle. Which, I don't know. This is something I was thinking about recently.
Right. So it sounds like the thing that I got is I can just imagine you really enjoying when people are amazed at the table, like oh, you know what I'm saying, like you're yeah, right, like
I want people to feel clever. That's as the designer, that's the things that you have power. You can create these emotions in people, right? You can make them feel clever. You can make them feel powerful, and you can create suspense. And it's usually like sometimes, there's this kind of in role player adventures. One of the mechanics is that you're trying to get the dice on the right slots, and you're like a limited number of actions, and you're like down to your last one, and you've got one card, and maybe the only one you have left is a re-roll, and it's like there's this suspense and this drama that's built up. It's like, this is my Hail Mary, and then no matter what the outcome is, if it's like they make it, then there's big hurrah. If they don't make it, then you're like, dang. Like that's the fun,
Right. Now, Keith, I got to tell you, I think we really, really landed on like the piece that you really love, because like that was an authentic giggle. Like you literally giggled when I was like, "Oh yes!" You was like, "Yes, that's exactly."
Yeah.
Yeah, games are cool.
So, I think you kind of answered one of my questions. I was going to say, like, as a designer, what other things are you passionate about? And I think I kind of got a sneak peek into that. I mean, obviously, you talked about video games, you talked about music history, a history of music. I imagine you're a music fan of some kind. But it sounds like you like puzzles and that kind of thing as well. Is there something that fans of Role Player and fans of Thunderworks and Keith Matejka games might be surprised? Oh, he's into cryptology or something like that.
I mean, you nailed it. Like I love music. I'm like a big. I like complicated music. I like a lot of rock, progressive rock, and heavy metal and stuff.
Can you give us an example?
What's that?
Can you give us an example?
Oh, my favorite band is probably Opeth. Is probably my favorite band. But like the poster child for prog rock is Dream Theater, and I like them quite a bit. But I went to school for music, and I played bass guitar and electric guitar most of my life, and taught in college, and so I'm a big funk fan as well, and I love 80s pop music, and like so I'm a little bit all over the place.
Do you still play?
Anything, and I think it hits some of the stuff that Myron was talking about of like it has to like move me emotionally, like music definitely moves me emotionally, and whether it be like a really like funky bass line or something that like gets your head popping right away, or like I don't know, like if I feel the anger in some metal music, like that's the piece that I like the most. So, and I like jigsaw puzzles. I really like. I've tried to do lots of these puzzle books or whatever, and they've got like these complicated puzzles, and like the exit games I like quite a bit. But I always feel like I like sometimes they make me feel a little stupid, like
the exit games in particular.
Like I like to play exit games with people that are smarter than me.
So I've had the exact same experience, and I've kind of banned them from the table now. I'm not playing any more exit games until something really amazing comes out.
I do like them quite a bit, but I feel like there's certain people I'd prefer to play them with. I mean, that's kind of, I don't know, a life philosophy, but like even when I'm playing in bands, I want to play with players that are better than me so I can learn from them, so I can get better. I don't want to be the smartest guy at the table. I don't want to be the best player in the group. I want to try to elevate,
Right.
So, but other things
you still
I like,
play?
What's that?
So you still play?
No, every day. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had this. You guys like stories? Here's a story. Whatever. This was, I don't know, 12 years ago maybe. So I was actually, I know exactly. It was 11 years ago because my son is 11 years old. But my son was born. I was playing in a rock cover band at the time. We were doing 3-hour sets at shows on the weekends, and we were rehearsing twice a week and doing shows. And I was playing board games on Tuesday nights with my friends in my board game group, and then like every other Saturday. And the kid shows up, and my wife kind of gave me a little bit the ultimatum, like, you can't do all this stuff, dude. You gotta get something. So it was kind of like either board games or music in terms of playing music, and I chose board games at the time, and that was like the thing that I was hot into and was just getting excited about and thinking about some design things. So I dropped playing music, like being in a band and playing shows every weekend, to focus on board games and being a father. Now that he's 11 years old, like, things change and teenagers want less and less to do with their parents over time usually. So like the idea of getting back into playing music again, like with, besides just me noodling or just writing like riffs or songs or stuff, that might happen soon. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, obviously COVID kind of put a pause on everything, but but now I'm like an old man, like, now I'm like an old man,
it feels different, maybe. Yeah.
Right. So we'll see. I would like to start playing music again someday. So
very good. Very good.
When role players gone to college and your your actual living children as well have gone to college, maybe. I just had this joke in my head that you paused music to sire role player and cartographers as well as actual, humans.
Right. It was the I don't know.
That's a good analogy, because so many people say that game is my baby. That's my baby. Don't change my baby. Right?
Yeah. I kind of got over that. I think working in video games and seeing so many people's like hard work end up in the trash can that like I ripped that idea out of my head. There's nothing's precious. Like anything can change. Like probably, if you're, you have to be open to all change, especially at the beginning of the project, and then figuring out like what pieces are, worth changing and which ones you're kind of not willing to change as the project goes on is part of the process and difficult to really nail down, I think, for a lot of people. And I don't really have any great advice for them besides to trust their gut, but don't be afraid to cut. Because I mean, that's the most common feedback you give a designer is like, where's the fun of this game? You need all this other junk. Get rid of it. Your game's going to be better as a result. That's I enjoy that process. I don't know. I like ripping things apart. It's fun.
Trust your gut.
And simplify. It sounds like if you could put it down into one word, it sounds like you're saying simplify.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. All right. So you mentioned COVID. Sorry, go ahead. Finish. You got more to say?
I think of, I mentioned Knizia a couple times, but some of like Ra to me is a game that is like so clean. It's the cleanest game of all time. Like it's super fun. The choices are super complex.
I'm cheering in the background.
The rules are so simple.
Yes.
It's like, what do you want to do on your turn? You draw a tile or you don't draw a tile. Well, you can start an auction if you want. And that's like the end of the rules.
Yep. Yeah. No, I love Ra.
Yeah, there's
a lot of Knizia games that I think would follow that simplified sort of rule set, but still are clever and interesting and very good.
Like, you just have to have a open mind and an open ear and open mind. When you sit down and teach somebody a game and you see their eyes glaze over, you immediately know there needs to be some simplification here. Like either at least in the presentation, if not like the mechanics.
Right.
Like, people love Arc Nova and they love Food Chain Magnet, and that's cool. But what percentage of the, who are you trying to sell to those people? Is that the game you want to make for those people? That's a pretty small market. You're not going to be able to sell 500,000 of that game, no matter what it is. Like, I don't know. It's always, and that's just not my personal preference either. Like, I'll play those games and I like them, but I would rather play, Ra twice instead.
I agree. We'll have to play Ra together. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'll have to get myself to a convention and I'll do that. So you had mentioned COVID. And I guess one of the questions I had as a publisher, a lot of things have changed over the last couple of years. There's been changes in the global market. There's been production delays. Now we're having price increases across the board. I mean, how is that currently affecting or going to be affecting Thunderworks and what you do? And is there anything good that has come from that?
Yeah, there's definitely been some good. There's been some good. There's a lot of people that started playing board games over the pandemic.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, sales were pretty good over the pandemic. And that, I talk to my local retailers all the time to kind of get their take on things. And they're like, 2020 was a little rough because we were closed so much, but 2021 was a banner year. Like their sales are great.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
The industry, there's definitely, demand for these products. It's great. Shipping in 2021 was very rough.
Something, Panama Canal,
Yeah. It's just the fact that I had 3 Kickstarters or 3 projects. I had a ton of stuff coming over when it was the worst. I had Roleplay Adventures plus the expansion plus Cartographer's Heroes and the 3 map packs, and I made some jigsaw puzzles just for fun. Because jigsaw puzzles were selling like crazy during the pandemic. Like like stores couldn't get enough to fill their shelves. They were moving so fast. And of course, like as that rush is over, I'm like, yeah, I should do some too. And then
they arrived.
But that's fine. They'll sell someday. Anyway, so I had Kate May coming over, and these were all coming at the same time. I had 13 40-foot containers coming over like at the same time, and the prices were like through the roof. I paid on one of my containers, I paid $55,000 for it, whereas in like the prices before were like more like 4 to 6, maybe 8 on certain lanes. But and a lot of publishers.
Oh my God, that's incredible! Right? That's 10 plus times. Right. Like how do you recoup that? You don't.
Well, you mentioned price increases. That's part.
That's how you do it.
And I mean, it's not board games. It's just shipping in general. Everything was really crazy to move over. Things are getting better. I think I paid $22,000 for a container last month, so that's way better than $55,000. But the prices are high, and margins aren't massive anyway. So the easiest way to spread that cost across all participants in the process is just to raise that basically the consumer has to pay for it. So like the retailer makes a little bit more because their expenses are going up. Because it's percentage based, the distributor making a little bit more. So that extra $5, so for example, Lockup reprint is about to hit the market. The first printing, it was $50, and now it's $60. And I think for what's in that box, that's a reasonable price. So those additional $10 kind of get spread out across all the people that are involved in the process. So it's tough. I mean, the inflation problem right now doesn't make it much easier. But at the end of the day, board gaming is not like an essential, right? It's like people use their discretionary income for these things. And I think they're just going to be a little bit more expensive, unfortunately. Right. I don't know. And so that's tough for sure. I think having lower prices makes our games more accessible to everybody, right? So like, it's not just like the guy with the $120,000 a year job can afford these things. Like the lower the prices, the more people can afford to buy these things and enjoy them. And I'm hoping, maybe it's a prediction, but like these massive extravagant productions that have a gazillion miniatures and triple layer boards and dials and, plastic lanterns and all this stuff. Like, I personally kind of want to see that stuff go away a little bit. Like I want to see the prices come down for more people. I want to see, as much as like this is our free time to do these things, to play these games. I would rather like focus more on the gameplay experience and less about like having a magnet in my board.
Right.
It's
I understand that.
It's an interesting thing.
I see a lot of people complain about the prices of board games and the cost of the hobby in general. And I always compare it to what we have for other forms of entertainment,
Sure.
right?
I mean,
when you add up all your Disney Pluses and Amazon Primes and all these, TV accounts, that's the price of a board game, per
Right.
month kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or if you're the kind of person who's going to go out to the movie theater, although we haven't been able to do that for 2 years, but if you're going to a movie theater and you pay for parking and you get yourself a popcorn and a drink, there's a price
A
of
single
a
popcorn,
board.
not
Yeah, exactly. Not a giant popcorn. There's the price of a board game. Like, so, what is going to provide you with that repetitive, that, hopefully it's a replayable game, but what's going to provide you with that kind of repetitive entertainment?
Right.
Is it that movie you watch for an hour and a half, or is it the, an hour and a half game that you're going to play 60 times over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's about like our evaluation, or like how we value things, right? So like it's sometimes kind of crazy. It's like I can go to some place, I can take my family to McDonald's or something and spend $35 or $25, and like it gets flushed down the toilet 3 hours later, or I can buy Sushi Go for less than that and have infinite amount of fun. So
Yeah.
obviously you need to eat something to survive, but it is weird how people they'll see something that costs $40, $50, $60 and be like, oh man, $60 for a board game. It's like,
Yeah.
And that these things don't move around the world freely. These things cost money to move around, and printers are expensive, and
we personalize it, right? I mean, you would never think about passing up, oh no, I don't want to raise this. Okay, this year I'll just skip the raise, right? But oh, now it's going to cost me $5 more than it did last week to buy this particular game or whatever. That becomes almost an insult,
right? And I mean, I sit here and I feel like a hypocrite because it's like I just put out this $150 RPA, and then I'm saying I wish price were lower. It's like, could I have made that game smaller? Could I have made it more affordable? Could I? Sure, but I
it
mean,
comes with. But it comes with one. Yeah, it comes with one miniature too. It's not a game that's a box full of plastic miniatures, right?
Right. It's mainly paper. I mean, the paper is.
Is that a spoiler? Heavy. Did I give something away?
No.
Okay.
It's one miniature, and this is your player pawn. It's fine. But it's not.
Here's the question I have.
If you're trying to tell a story that has that much branching, is that complicated? It takes a lot of pages to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So the game.
And I'm sure you could have easily added in another 12 miniatures of different things that happen in the game, and then your $140 or $150 game becomes $200 or $250.
And some of it was just like cost of raw materials went up in China, so I was hoping to kind of keep that game to 100 to 120. But with the shipping expenses, you take a container and you fill it with copies of Role Player Adventures. You can't fit that many versus like
you're right,
you fit 20,000 or whatever. So the cost per unit, bringing it across the ocean is a lot different on those kind of games. And I think it's a different customer too.
Well, let me ask.
You want something small that's faster, that you can more move around easier.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let me ask you this question, Keith. Do you feel that digital has a place in the answer of how do you the reality is that the price of these things are going up for the physical games? Is a digital experience of any kind, VR, AR, just straight up at the computer, mobile devices, is that a part of the solution?
If it is, I don't mind. I know there's some people who are like, get your video game out of my board game,
That's true. Yeah, there are people like that.
I like when Fantasy Flight did their digital implementation for Lord of the Rings, I was like, this is amazing. I love it. Like, I love the atmosphere of the music and like the doing all the administrative stuff that I don't really that get in the way of me enjoying the experience are taken away. I'm on board. But I don't know. Like, I still sit down and I don't want to, on the other hand, like, for me, an adventure game, this feels okay, like being part of the experience. But I don't know if I want that in my I don't know if I want to play Arc Nova with a phone or something like that instead. I like just being together with people. Like I like interacting with people. I like moving wood around on a piece of printed paper. So I don't know. I think there's going to be less of these big mega games because of the shipping piece.
Mm-hmm.
Unless manufacturing becomes available in the U.S. in a real way, which somebody would have to invest a lot of money into infrastructure for that to
happen. You are now talking about a pet project of Myron's, a question that he's asked and pursued, I think, quite a bit.
Yeah, and like it's this there has to be a model somewhere it could be 100 years from now where people can get either the best of both worlds, or someone figures out, well, which mechanics work well so that people, or which types of experiences can be implemented in a way that don't put the technology in the way of the people.
Sure.
Like in the way of the community, in the way of the experience. Now, like a game like the one we played last week, Chris, with the balls, and you had to like move them around.
Dr. Eureka.
Dr. Eureka, right?
Yeah.
So like a game like that, it would be very difficult outside of like VR or like some extreme technology that hasn't, that no one knows about yet. You couldn't get the technology to not get in the way of that experience.
Right.
But if you did though, would you want to spend $3 billion, fly to Mars, find alien technology and then bring it back to get that experience outside of plastic marbles and, the very physical IRL experience?
I mean, I'm a big VR fan. Like I play quite a bit of VR stuff. Like,
have you tried Demio? I have to know. Have you tried Demio?
No.
It's a board game that like it's kind of like it's like a board is like miniatures, and like you actually sit above it and you like actually roll dice and you play with characters and you move them around in VR and stuff like that.
That's cool. Yeah, I know. Most of my VR stuff has been on PlayStation.
Okay.
But like it's been the most interesting thing that's happened in gaming, in video gaming, for me in a long time. I have this problem where like I love something and then I do it very seriously and then I learn everything about it and then I burn out on that thing real fast. So it's like you see how the sausage is made and then I get out. So, for me it was like music, and then I worked in the recording studio and I was like, and then I burnt out and I didn't really want to do music for a long time. And then it was video games and I did that for 15 years. And then I was like, I don't really want to play video games ever again. I'm one out. So now I'm on board games and I'm trying to extend that period of time in which I get burnt out and I don't want to do it anymore as long as possible, or else I'm going to have to find something else that I'm passionate about.
Right.
So what I'm getting at is like video games, like I've played video games all my life. And, there's so many reused ideas and so many kind of similar notes hit on all these products that it became hard to get excited about the new titles this year. But for me, VR was like the thing, that got me kind of back into playing video games because it was a innovative experience for me, something I had never had before. And I'm sure that is out there. I mean, there's a couple things about that. What are you thinking?
All right. So like, while you were talking, Keith, I'm thinking, what if someone came up with a VR suite of tools and they did something like what a company like GameCrafter does? Like if you want to make a car game or a game with simple, like very well used game mechanics, they have them. They print them out. You can just like get the pieces. But what if you created those pieces like the PlayStation game where you put the cards up and it actually plays on I forget what it was called, but it was they had like the PlayStation Eye or whatever back in the day.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
What if you had game pieces like Game Crafter that are like generic, but people were able to like design experiences in VR, and if you pick up the meeple that has the RFID tag, you could actually buy a set of the things so that when you're in VR, you can move things around, but you could design it to do anything.
Right.
And people could build, like, you could actually do DLC that way, like based on one set of assets.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like you ever play like Skylanders back in the day, where they have like a physical portal with a tool.
Yes. But they like brand each piece, which is right. If you have like Disney level stuff, you can do that. But I mean, like for companies like we have this set of meeples that, like, because of our API, you can program that when you're picking that meeple up, it can look like anything. And so if you buy this set of meeples, you can play this 500 games.
Right.
And you just have to do a subscription or whatever,
right.
And blah, blah, blah. I think that
like a VR pack piece.
I think that could work. Like, because that's like, at least as far as and this is just, I love ideas, Keith.
Right.
Now, Myron, I need you to stop because
yes.
I love Keith's games and I love Thunderworks and I don't want him to get bored of the tabletop world. So let's just talk about something else.
Fair.
I mean, I love technology. I'm excited to see how technology evolves and how it interfaces with board games. Although if it doesn't interface with board games at all, I'm still happy because I'm still having that experience with my friends at a table, pushing things around and laughing and trying to outmaneuver each other. So I don't know. We'll see where technology goes, and I don't know. Maybe you're onto something.
Yeah, that around the table has to be part of that experience.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll probably have to call quits to this very, very soon. Before we do, though, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts were. Why do you think we play games? Not necessarily you as a person, as a species. Why do we play games?
Because life is chaotic. So there's, you live in this world and there are quite a few things that you can control, but like the vast majority is you cannot control, and so I think as human beings, we feel more comfortable with order, something, some level of predictability of the world around us, of what's going to happen in the future. It gives us peace of mind, and so board games is an extension of that. It's like, having a structured rule set that you have to manipulate. You're sitting, and games are fun because they're also an equalizer in terms of, like, if I'm wrestling, my kid, I'm always going to beat him. I'm always going to pin him.
Right.
But you sit down and play, whatever. If we play Power Grid or something, it's like we are on. The rules dictate the order of the game, and there's a clear end, and there's the turn sequence is clear, and what you can do and you can't do, and there's something very I think, maybe not calming but relaxing but engaging about that, in which you sit across the table with somebody or some people, and you decide what the established rules of this world are, and then you get to play. And when everything is equal, there isn't. It's just better. It's just more fun. You've got this playground to play in that doesn't have the chaos of the real world in it. That's my thought on it, at least.
I like it. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
the world
amazing.
is chaotic, and in board games, everything is equal. That's the two phrases that I wrote down from that. I like that a lot. So can you tell us what you're working on next, or currently? What's next?
How much time?
Can't tell us anything.
So, like I did mention, like the 13 projects. So there's the next. What's coming out next for Thunderworks, which is 10 Penny Parks, comes out at the end of March, early April. The next 3 map packs for cartographers, which are called the Frozen Expanse, Kethra Steppe, and Hornhelm Market. Those map packs come out in June, July, and August. So Origins, the first, the sixth, the fourth one, Frozen Expanse will be out, and then in between will be the Kethra Steppe, and then 6 will be out for Gen Con. So those are kind of the things coming out this year. I'm currently planning on doing 3 Kickstarters later this year. We'll see how that works out. One is for the first one is planned for July. It's a game called Metro Runner. It's from a new designer named Stephen Kerr, who is local to me. He's in my regular game play testing group. We've been working together on this game for a long time, and it is a medium weight Euro. It's like, but thematically, you're a Metro runner in the city. You've got your reputation to try to increase. You're finishing jobs. You're doing a lot of. It's got this interesting mechanism where you're kind of going around in a circle around town. You're taking the train, and you're. You basically get to move from station to station. You can increase how fast you can move. The core mechanism is in the center of the table. There's a set of 9 tiles that are double-sided with numbers, and it has a hacking mechanic where you're trying to get the numbers in the right position, and you get some tools to manipulate those numbers. So that's a good time, and the artwork's really good. Then in August, the plan is to do a game on Kickstarter called Dawn of Ulos, which is in the world of Role Player.
Right.
It takes place at the beginning. It takes place at the beginning of the creation of the world. So, if you know anything about Ulos, which is the name of the world, Azima is this basically rainbow scale dragon that creates the world, and that just happened. And you play as these different gods that are manipulating some different factions like orcs and frogkins and stuff, and you're trying to get them to like grow their territory and fight, and you're kind of investing in them. So there's an old game from the 60s that's relatively well known, but I would say a lot of current gamers have not played. That's called Acquire. That has
I love Acquire. Love Acquire.
I would say you are really going to like this game.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, then Sherry will love it too. That's one we have on the shelf and haven't touched for probably about 2 years. But when we do bring it out, it's like, oh, we got to play this like 8 times this month because we love it.
It is great, and that has some similarities to that game, but also many differences as well. But and then so that is on its way. And then the next expansion for Role Player Adventures is the next Kickstarter. And I was hoping for early November on that. We are deep in, we're playtesting that. We're adding some new things to make it even more interesting. It was going to be a 6 adventure campaign, and we just added a 7th adventure to the campaign. And we added an epilogue, which happens after the campaign. So, when you play, that 300-hour RPG that you played, and then it's like rolling the credits and it goes forever. Yeah. And they show that Jimmy, this character decided to, work on his fishing, and now he's got a sailing company, and it's like kind of the where are they now with all the characters from the adventure. So that's kind of like what the epilogue is for the new adventure, where it's like, it's not mechanical, like there's no dice rolling or anything, but it's like, what happened to the characters after the adventure?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Very, so it's not cool. Like it's not New Game Plus, but it's like if you play Final Fantasy 9 and if you want to get all the endings, or Metal Gear Solid, like you have to beat the game 6 times, or Dead Rising, you had to beat the game 7 times to get to the final end boss.
If you want to get the dog ending in Silent Hill,
Yeah.
Yes, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Silent Hill is a perfect one because they actually do that after the game. They show where people ended up.
Yeah. And I mean, I worked at Konami and I worked on some of those Silent Hill games, so I definitely have a lot of affinity for them.
Keith is a gamer, like legit.
Yeah.
Like Keith followed me through all that shit. I was trying to throw some loops, and Keith was like, "Yep, exactly." I was literally there. Like that's what's up. Like,
very true.
I've played a few games over my days, but anyway, yeah. So those are the 3 projects. I also have some other projects that I don't know when I'm going to release them yet. So some smaller games I can tell you about. There's a game called Goblin Vaults that I have been working on. Actually, as a designer, I've been working on it with a friend named Eric Schlotman, who was one of the developers on Role Player. Like we shared an office at Raven, so we used to play test on lunch all the time, and we started working on this game together. And it's called Goblin Vaults. If you've played Role Player Adventures, then you know that when you go to the Kolbik prison mission, you run into lots of prisoners in Kolbik prison who are playing a card game called Goblin Vaults. And so I was like, well, we got to make a game out of the game that's referenced in another game, obviously. So we've been working on that for a long time. I've never just done a straight up card game before. And that's what it is. And but it's like, I don't really like many games that are just straight up card games, right? Like I don't like any trick taking game I've ever played.
Really?
Even though my favorite, Glory to Rome is my favorite card game of all time. And there are great card games out there. Obviously I mentioned Battle Line before. I also like a ton of other ones, but for some reason that space is hard for me to design in because it's so restricted. But it's been cool and it's fun. And the victory points are like the gears from the constructs that are the guards of Kolbik prison and all these kind of other related stuff. So that's a small card game. And there's a new design. I don't know if I've actually told anybody about this in much detail.
Oh, snap.
But, there's a game coming from the designer of Cartographers, Jordi Adan, that we've been working on for a while. It's a dungeon building game. Think like Sushi Go, but you're building a dungeon. And so you end up kind of laying out a set of like 4 cards each round, and it creates 4 rows of dungeon tiles. And then you're passing cards to your neighbors and stuff. So that's and the artwork is really good on that one, so I'm excited about that. What else? I mean, I don't know. That's pretty much it.
So now I have
a lot.
So like now I'll have a tool to create my one-shot adventures now. Like, so not only can people create characters and play them, right, with the quick start rules and role play adventures, like it's going to be even easier. But like now I'll have a tool for creating the random dungeons for one-shot adventures.
There you can build your random dungeons. We've got your random fantasy maps and cartographers. I've been thinking about
characters.
What does the miniature generating game look like?
Right, yeah, the in-game content.
I've been thinking about doing a game that's like the party building game. It's like now you built your character. Maybe there's a different game about building your. I'm just taking all the things that I remember doing playing role-playing games and just making more games out of them.
Yeah. Like I literally joined the U.S. Navy because I'm from Chicago originally, but I loved making RPG characters. And when the recruiter handed me like the sheet for like the jobs, it was laid out like a Rift's character sheet. Like literally, like here's the class, here's the primary skills, secondary, tertiary coordinate. I was like, yo, like I gotta do this. Like, yeah.
They saw you coming.
Yeah, I agree.
You held out your hand, you pulled some D6s out of your pocket. And you're filling out the application.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, that's exciting. That is a busy, busy year. With all that on your plate, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. This has been wonderful. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to playing some of the games from your past that I haven't played yet. Role Player Adventure amongst them. Myron, has a copy. I don't know where I got Ryan from. Myron has a copy, and I haven't pressed him to it, but I'm hoping he's going to.
Yes, Chris has been very polite. I've literally brought it out like to his house twice, and I was like, I'd be like, totally, I'm gonna learn how to play it, and we're gonna play it, and then when I get there, I'm like, I want to take a nap. Like,
it's like a 17-pound box. You had to carry it in. You're exhausted.
Yes, like I mean, I'm getting really fit though. Like it's got its benefits.
Yeah,
I lift with my legs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, who knows? In a couple of years, maybe we'll have the Role Player Adventures big box, big box,
big box,
really big
bigger,
box,
the bigger roller box.
Role Player Adventures, the truck box version,
the bigger boardier box or something like that.
So, where can people reach out to you if they want to find out more about Thunderworks and you and that kind of thing?
Yeah, www.thunderworksgames.com is always a good place to go. I'm active on Facebook and Twitter. Although I've got a couple other folks that help out on the Thunderworks page on Thunderworks as well. You can always email me at keith@thunderworksgames.com if you have a question. I'm very reachable. And like, I definitely feel a strong connection to my customers, and just because we're all gamers and we're all trying to have a good time.
Right.
So
awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys. It's been fun. Thanks for letting me run my mouth.
This has been a blast. No, not at all.
Absolutely. This has been.
I have a very short sheet, and we've done only about half of them. Oh, I like the clapping. That's good. I have a very short sheet, and we've only gone through about half of the questions. So maybe we'll be calling you again.
Question.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to call you again in a year or 8 months or something, and have you on for part 2, and we'll talk about other games that are new then.
Cool.
Thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, Keith.
Thanks for listening to Board Game Chats with Chris and Myron. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, check out their website at boardgamechats.com, or drop them an email at boardgamechats@gmail.com. You can also find Board Game Chats on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.